A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. It is lovely to have you here with us on Streaming School. It's really, really nice to get a second lesson in straight away. And now you've got the other end of the terrible duo of English and maths back to back, just like your favorite times in school. We're very, very lucky to be joined again by the wonderful Miss Barna, all the way from Spain. And that's one of the things I've loved about Streaming School, not only having the expertise to share with everyone, but also being in a situation where we've got friends from all over the world helping to come and join in. We've had people from Spain, we've had people from Japan, we've got people from China, so it's wonderful to get everyone in and ready and sorted. Good morning, Miss Barla. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's another angry-looking morning here in the east of England. How's it looking out in Madrid?
Oh, it's pretty good actually. It's 31 degrees right now.
Wow. Oh. Yeah, I think everyone's. Have you still got lockdown in Spain? Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah, but we're going into phase 1 on Monday, which means we're allowed to meet up in groups of 10. But at the moment, we're still locked in. We're only allowed to go out for a couple of hours each day, and you've got to come back home. You can't go anywhere else. So it's quite quick. But Monday it's easing up, which is great news.
Groups of 10. I don't even have 10 friends to get together with. That's. Sounds like Spain's encouraging everyone to join a gang, Niche. It's just kind of brilliant. Well, the screen is yours, the floor is yours. Enjoy, and we're really looking forward to having your learning with us again. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, guys. Good morning. So I don't know if you remember our last lesson, but the very last lesson that we had with me was about factorizing. And I know that a lot of you found factorizing quite challenging. So what I've tried to do is break it into 5 different sections, so that you can see where it all comes in. So no matter what question you get, you'll be able to spot which section it goes with. So far, we've only covered 2 of them, which is factorizing into single brackets and the sum and product rule. So I think we should just quickly have a little recap of those 2 before we move on to the third one, which is today's lesson, which is called the crossover method, which is what I call it. It could be called anything really. So if you have a look at the very first page, let's have a look at these. These are 4 different questions that I wanted to have a go at. Okay, the first 2 follow the first type, which is the single bracket idea, and the next 2 follow the second method, which is the sum product. So if you have a look at the very first one here, you need to do this every single time. You need to consider what can you factorize out of both things, or all the things you see. Even before any other type of factorizing, that needs to be the first thing you consider. So if you have a look at this, you think about this one and this one, can you see there's some numbers that are in both? The sign is going to be coming up in both terms, as well as a letter. So first thing I like to do is consider what's in both. So you can see there's a minus sign and a minus sign. So I'm going to plug that negative to the front. And you can also see that the number 21 and the number 14 have a factor of 7 in both. So I'm going to pull out that 7 to the front as well. Yeah? And then algebraically, there's an A here and there's an A here. There's no B in both, which means you cannot pull out the B. But there is an A in both of them. So we're going to pull out that A to the front as well. Now, once you've pulled all those out, you can cancel each of these things from each term. So we're going to get rid of the minus sign from both of them. We're going to get rid of the 7 from both. When I say get rid of, I mean factorize out that 7. So divide that by 7 and you get a 3. Divide that one by 7 and you get the 2. I tend to write the numbers on the top so you can see it quite clearly, yeah? And then with the A here, you can factorize out the A, which means that one technically disappears. And so does that. And then you look at what you have left. Here you can see you've got a 3 and the B that hasn't been touched at all. So both those bits go here, okay? And then the sign here, since we factorized out the minus sign, when you factorize a minus, you've got to consider a minus. If the minuses come out, what would be left here? And that would be a positive. Because if you think about expanding this, a positive and a negative would make that negative in the middle. So there's a positive sign there. And then what we left on the end is the number 2. So that is fully factorized. If you check here, there's nothing else you can pull out there, yeah? Okay, with the second one, now this one is a little bit of an extension, because I'd like to show you something slightly harder. So here, you treat it as if it's a term. The x minus 1 and the x minus 1 here is just as if it was just one algebraic thing. So if you look at this one here, and here, you can see there's an x minus 1 in this and an x minus 1 in this. So what we're going to do is pull out that entire factor to the front, yeah? When you pull out the x minus 1 to the front, you can remove it from here and remove it from here, because it's going to be considered here. And then in your remaining bracket, you can see there'll be a 4 and then a plus a. And you can write the 4 and the plus a here. Now, obviously, it looks like it's a 2-bracket question, but really what you've done is use the same method that you would use in single factorization, right? In single bracket factorization. There's no difference. That's just a little bit more complicated, so you can see something tidier, okay? Now, these 2 follow the second method, which is the sum and product, the adding and multiplying one. So let's see if you can remember this. Here you've got to consider a number that multiplies to give you negative 40 and adds to give you negative 6. So normally most kids think of 5 and 8. I would too. Those are the two most popular numbers I think of that multiply to give you 40. But if you look at the difference between them, it doesn't give you a difference of 6. Nor when you add them together does it give you a 6. So you know those aren't the numbers. So you've got to consider 2 other numbers. So I consider the next 2 that come to mind for me are 4 and 10. Right? And if you can look at that, the 4 and the 10, there's a difference of 6, which means that we're going to be able to get that negative 6. So your next thing is drawing out the 2 brackets. And then, because it's an x squared in the front, you know at the beginning of both the brackets, you're going to have that x there, right? And then you've got to consider the 4 and the 10. When you multiply them together, you've got to make negative 40, which means one's got to be a negative number, one's got to be a positive number. But you've got to decide which is which. And that's when you look at the minus 6. You want to make it a negative 6. So you want it to be a lower than 0 number, which means the 10 has to be negative and the 4 has to be positive. So it goes into the negative numbers. And all you do is pop in the plus 4 here and pop in the minus 10 there. And there you go. You're done. Now, if you want to check that, you can expand it out using FOIL or whatever method you use to expand. And when you simplify after expanding, you should go back to that question. And then the last one, last recap, let's have a look at this. So again, here we're looking at numbers that multiply to give you minus 90, but at the same time, they've got to add to give you, now be careful here, even though there's no number in front of the x, it's got to add, remember there is a number, to give you plus 1. Okay, so that's something that people find quite challenging sometimes, forget that there's a plus 1 there. So you're looking for 2 factors of 90. Now 90's got lots of different factors, right? But you're looking for 2 numbers that are very close together so that when you subtract them from each other, they give you an answer of 1. So you should consider the numbers 9 and 10 because they're so close. They're 1 away, which means you'll get that 1. So 9 and 10 are the 2 numbers we're going to consider. So we do the same thing again, 2 brackets. Again, it's just x squared, which means at the front it's an x and an x in both. That's how you get the x squared and they multiply out, right? And then you consider the 9 and the 10. And then you want it to be a positive 1. So in this case, you want the 10 to be positive and the 9 to be negative. So when you add them together, it goes just above 0. Yeah? Doesn't matter the order. I'm going to put the positive first, but it doesn't make a difference. You put negative 9 first or positive 10 first. And you fill them in, and there you go. And that is fully factorized. So these are 4 questions that consider the topic that we learned last lesson together. Okay, I hope that's okay for that one. So I'm going to move on to our topic for today. Our topic for today is I call the crossover method. Now, the way to identify these questions is you've got to have the 3 terms. You don't have to, but you've got to have an x squared term and one of these 2. And when you've got one of these 2, you've got to make sure there's a number in front of the x squared. So you've got a quadratic. Normally, all 3 parts turn up. And the x squared coefficient has a number here, not just number 1, but it has a number that's different to number 1. So the number 2 in this case. That's how you identify this. Okay? So from this, we're going to go through this. Now, for this particular example, I'm just going to do it. And I want you to have a look. Don't stress. We'll do it a couple of times. And when you see the second thing, you'll see the same pattern happening. And it won't be that difficult. It's a really clever method that my teacher taught me when I was quite small, and I love it. So look at this. 2x squared, okay? You've got to think of 2 factors that multiply together to give you that 2x squared. Since it's a prime number, it's really nice because the only 2 numbers that can multiply together are 2x and x, right? 2 and xx, when you multiply together, you can get 2x squared. So write them underneath that 2x squared. Second step, look at the last number. Now, don't worry about the sign, just look at the 3 and think of 2 numbers that multiply to give you 3. So I'm going to think of 3 and 1 because, again, it's a prime number. And in this particular case, I'm going to not jump a step, but I'm going to do something because I've done this lots of times. I know the 1 goes first. I know that the 3 goes first and that the 1 comes down here. Now, when you do this later on, you may get the numbers in the wrong order. Doesn't matter. You just rub them out, try them around a different way. So you can switch them later on. But for now, we're going to do it where I'm putting the 3 first and the 1 second. Okay, and I haven't thought about the plus. So first step, 2 factors of 2x squared. Second step, 2 factors of 3, right? Now we do the part that the name comes from, the crossover method. So what you're going to do is you're going to cross over that and multiply them together. So 2x times 1 is going to give you 2x, yeah? And then you're going to do exactly the same thing going diagonally upwards. And when you multiply x times 3, you get the 3x. And this is the really clever part. Okay, so you've got those bits. Now you've got to consider how you can get this middle number by adding these 2 together. So I need to get myself a 5x. And in this particular case, it's really clever because you can see it. All you have to do is add the numbers together. You can only add or subtract, okay? So here, add. You can add these two numbers together, so you can get a 5x, which is positive. So that means that these numbers are all correct. So there's a positive here and a positive here. These are both positive numbers to give you positive 5. And the very last step, feed that plus sign back here. And feed that plus sign back here. And in fact, now you're completely done. All you have to do is put brackets around the first line and brackets around the second line. If you look, you've got the 2 brackets that you need for your factorization. That's the first bracket and that's the second bracket. So when you're writing out down, you just copy down the top line with the sign that you've got, which is +3. And then you do it for the second one as well. See, and that is literally it. Obviously, this question is quite nice because I haven't got any negative numbers involved. So I want to show you this process before we put some negative signs and make it a bit more confusing. Okay, so that's it. That's done. That is completely factorized and you're done. All right, so we're going to have a look at another example, again, with positive numbers in it, just to give you one more summary of how to do these. I know these can be quite tricky, so I want to make sure you understand each step before we move ahead. So let's have a look at this again. Here, everything's positive, so it's a nice simple one. Step 1, think of 2 numbers that multiply to give you 12x squared. So you've got 4x and 3x. There are lots of other numbers, but generally try and think of the first 2 that popped ahead and are quite close together. Okay, you can think of 6 and 2, but when you try 6 and 2, it won't work. So try 3 and 4 normally with 12. Those are the ones that normally come up, right? 4 and 3, and the x's in the end, they multiply to give you 12x squared. Step 2, think about the 6, and you're going to think of 2 numbers here. Now I'm going to do this wrong, just for a second. I'm going to put the 2 here and the 3 here. The reason I want to show you this is not okay. Can you see that on the same line, you've got a 3 and a 3, and on the same line, you've got a multiple of 2. That is not what you want, because if you've got them in the same bracket, it means that you haven't actually fully factorized. So the most likely answer is the other way around. So I'm going to flip them over, and I'm going to try it with a 3 here and a 2 here. Okay, so try and remember that. On the same line, you shouldn't have multiples of each other. Right, step 3, multiply across. So we're going to cross multiply. That times that gives me my 8x. And that times that gives me 9x. Now, those look like really big numbers, but in fact, remember, all this time we're trying to get ourselves a plus 17x, right? And if you look at that, it's a bit of a relief, actually, that they're so big, because when you add them together, you do, in fact, get 17x. So, like, we're done. This is perfect. All the numbers you selected, or I've selected, are absolutely fine in this particular case. So remember, always put signs in. To get plus 17, you need to have 2 positive numbers. So we're going to put plus and plus there. Feed those numbers back into here so we know what's going to be back in our actual quadratic, factorized, and then put brackets around it, and you're done. And that, again, is the same thing. So read the first bracket as your first answer. And then the second bracket, which is 3x plus 2, goes with the second part of the answer. And again, in your exams, you should always do this and multiply it out really quickly. You don't have to write down, but just quickly do a quick check in your head and make sure the numbers work. And there you go. That should hopefully give you a good starting point for what we're going to do now, okay? So now we're going to have a look at ones with negative numbers. This is where this method is so useful. It really does. It's like a lifesaver. It really means that you don't have to think too much and the numbers sort of pop out and you see them without worrying too much. Okay, so 6x squared, we're going to do the same thing now. 6x squared, I'm going to think of 3x and 2x, yeah? Those are the most obvious numbers, I think. So 3x and 2x. You could put down 6 and 1, but they're quite far away from each other. So I'm going to try the most obvious ones first, which are 3 and 2. Now, ignore the negative signs. You know there'll be minuses in our answer, but ignore the negative signs for now and focus on the 2. 2 is a prime number. If I put the 1 times 2 like that, that is not okay. Think about why. The 2 and 2 are on the same line, so you do not want to do that. I instantly know the 2 must be here and the 1 must be here, right? So we're going to cross that now and multiply and see if this works. That gives you 3x. Okay, cross that over, multiply it together. Gives you 4x. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. You've got to think carefully, okay? Looking at the middle thing, we need to make minus x. I'm going to write that down here. That's the first thing I do. Write it down so you force it to look like that. And you know it has to be added together. So the only way to get minus x, if you're adding these things together, is to make the bigger number negative. Can you see that? And then the smaller number is positive. So minus 4x plus 3x gives you minus x, which is exactly what you want. Now, this is the clever part. Watch, when you feed that back here, and you feed that back here, look what happens. The minus 2 and the plus 1 does give you minus 2, so it works out beautifully. Those 2 do actually give you minus 2. They don't give you plus 2, they give you minus 2, which is what you want. So you know you're definitely on the right track. Close the brackets, search, and then you've got your answer. So that's 3x minus 2. And then the second bracket is 2x plus 1. Yeah, and that's it. That's how you've got to do it. So you've got those, and you've got to use the minus signs to kind of check your answer thoroughly through. All right? Right, we're going to try another negative one before I give you a couple to do as well. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. Now, this one I've made a little bit more difficult intentionally, so you can see that even when the numbers look really scary, like 29 and 15, it still works in the same way, and it's beautiful. So bear in mind here, there's a negative sign in the question, so you know your answer will have minus somewhere. Okay, so we're going to start this again. Same method as before, no stress. Two numbers that multiply to give you this. Think of the most obvious ones, not 1 and 15. It's not normally the ones right at the end. Think of ones that are close together, so 5 and 3. So put a 5x here and a 3x here. Okay, now just to show you that sometimes it doesn't work, I'm going to think of two numbers that give you 12. So I'm going to think of 2 and 6. Yeah, now why would I not do it this way? Think about it for a second. Why is this for sure not the right answer? The bottom line has a factor of 3 in it, right? They're both factors of each other. So I know even if this was right, it's not going to be that way around. So instead, I'm going to write the 2 on the top, and I'm going to write the 6 on the top, and I'm going to write the 2 on the bottom. Now it looks a little better because there's no factors that are common in both lines. Cross over really quickly. Let's have a look at this. I've got a 10 next here. Okay, that's fine. And I'll put in that times that gives you 18. Now this is where this might happen to you. There is no way I'm going to get 29 from those two numbers. I already know that. I'm looking at it, adding them together, close, but not quite. Taken away from each other, no chance. So you know you've done that wrong. So the idea is to try again and think of two different numbers. So now I'm going to go back to the numbers that generally come up with a 12, which is 3 and 4. And remember, the 3 can't go on the bottom. I'm going to pop it on the top, and I'm going to put the 4 on the top bottom. Ignore the sign for a second. Let's just deal with this. This gives you 9x, and you multiply it together, and then multiplying those together, you get that 20x. And you can see it, literally see it in front of you. 29 is definitely going to get that, right? But now the thing you've got to consider is what do you need to do to your numbers? You need to make it a minus 29. So I'm going to write down minus 29 under here. So minus 29x. And you know it's got to be a plus here. What do both these numbers need to be minus 29? They both have to be negative. And you're thinking, that's a bit weird. But look, when I feed it back here, it is beautiful because the minus make that plus, right? So it works out without even realizing it. So minus 3 and minus 4 do make plus 12, which means that the whole thing, all the signs everywhere are exactly what they need to be. So final thing, brackets around here, brackets around there, and then we've got our two answers, which is 5x minus 3 in the first bracket, and then the second bracket is 3x minus 4. Now I remember when I figured this out, when my teacher taught me this, it made a massive amount of difference when I was factorizing, and I hope it is for you too. I know a lot of you have been taught, and I did at least do it as well. You try and guess the factors that go into both, or you do like the grouping method where you extend it out and try and factorize out different bits. That can work, but I think this is quite a nice one because it's visual. You can see what's going into each fraction, each bracket, each factor, and you don't need to stress. The answer kind of pops out without you really trying too hard, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I want you to have a go at the next. There's a couple of questions on the next slide. I won't give you too long, but if you want, take little screenshots or write down the questions. You can try them later. I'll show you the answers after a couple of minutes as well, okay? So let's have a go at these. There are 5 different questions here. Think about the signs, think about where they've got to be positives or negatives, and pick one. If you want, just pick 1 or 2 of these to have a go. Look at one that you think is a little scary for you, or something if you want to challenge yourself, pick a slightly harder one. If you want to just try it once and be a little safe, try the first one here. Okay, I think, in my opinion, I think the further down you go, the harder they get. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, however it is, okay? I'm going to try some as well myself. So you guys think about factors. If it doesn't work the first time, doesn't mean you're wrong, doesn't mean the questions were broken, that they've made a mistake. It's just you haven't thought about the right factors. Remember, try and think of the most obvious ones in the middle rather than 1 times number. So if you're looking at 15, you're thinking of 3 times 5 first. Maybe it's not, but try 3 times 5 first before you try 1 times 15. Yeah? If it's a prime number, you're good. You know it's going to be 1 and 5, or you know it's going to be 1 and 2. You don't stress. But with the 4x here, try 2 and 2 first before you try 1 and 4. Yeah? And with the 30 here, maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but I would try 5 and 6 first before I try 3 and 10, or 1 and 30, or even 2 and 15. So try the most obvious ones in the middle first, and then work your way out. Okay, so pick one, Have a go. Doesn't matter if you don't do more than 1 or 2 now. And then I'll show you the answers, and now I'm going to give you a slightly more challenging one in a couple of minutes as well. If you're okay, so I'm going to try the very last one because I think that's the one that's probably the most challenging out of all of these. And I'm going to write my answer up here without really saying anything, so I don't distract you. You can see my working out for the very last one if that's the one that you're trying at the moment. Okay. Okay, you should be finishing up the first one that you're doing at the moment. Okay. And if you have finished, you can have a look at what I've got on the board at the moment. So I did my very first, and I thought of the most obvious numbers I could think of, which are 5 and 6. And I tried them, and it didn't really work out. Okay, so like I've got 5x and 8x, there's no way I'm going to get minus x from that. So I know it's wrong. And that's okay. You just cross it out and you try again. Don't cross it out in your exam because you're showing you're working out. You're showing your thought process. So if you're looking at this one, in this one, that times that is your 9x, right? And then that times that gives you 10x. And this is perfect because I want to make minus x at the bottom. So I know that this has got to be positive and this has got to be negative because when I add them together, it will give you a negative there. And then you feed that back in. So that's minus and that's a plus there. And then the brackets go around the edge. Okay, so the final one for this one would be 3x minus 10. This is for the very last question. And then x plus 3 for the second bracket. Done. Okay, so can you see, even though I think sometimes, it's almost always 5 and 6, but sometimes it's not, and that's a good thing. You just need to try again, be resilient, and try and see what happens. Okay? So I'm going to show you the answers to all these questions so you can have a look at them and mark them later on or mark them now if you want. Okay, so here we go. So first one's there, second one, third one, fourth one, and the fifth one. If you look at the first one, because all the signs are positive, you know it's all positive. Here, if you notice, the second number is positive, but the addition is negative. Can you see you can always guess that both of them are going to be negative numbers. Otherwise, you're not going to get positive 6. So you can just check the signs like that and make sure it adds up. Okay, so for the very last few minutes, we're going to have a go at a challenging question. So remember, you know 3 different types of factorizing now. You know, pulling out a factor to the front of the entire thing. You know how to do the sum and the product. So when it's an add and a multiply, those only happen when there's no visible number in front of the x squared. And then the third method is this crossover one. So we're going to have a look at this last one here. Mr. Hady, are we okay time-wise? Can I quickly do this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we're looking at this one now. Look at this. Don't be too scared. I know there's a cube in it, but that's the whole point. These are the kind of questions that are going to kind of hit the higher tier sort of GCSE style question. You've got to think about what could possibly happen here. Now, the reason I've taught you things in the order I've taught you in is because I want you to consider them in that order. So the first thing you should always consider when you've got algebra and they say factorize fully is there a factor in all of them? And if you look across, well, the numbers no, because that's a prime number, so there's nothing that can be pulled out number-wise. But algebraically, you can see there's an x cubed here, an x squared here, and an x here. So pull that x out to the front. Okay, so factorize it out to the front and just see what happens. Don't stress too much about the next point, just try and do that bit by bit. So when you pull out the x to the front, you get 6x squared, nothing else changes except the indice, minus 11x, and then minus 10. So this would give you your first mark. Okay, this question's got 4 marks in it. So the first mark would be given for that simple factorization. So when you get to that point, you're good, you've got a mark at least. Now reconsider this bit. This is done. Don't worry about the x in front, but can reconsider what's in the bracket. So remember, first step was single bracket, which is single bracket factorization, which you've done. The second thing is the sum and product, the adding and the multiplying one. And that only happens when you've got a no number in front of the x squared, but there is a 6 in front of this x squared. So that is not going to be the method you use now. And then the third one, which is the one we did today, is literally what you see here. It's a number in front of the x squared, an x, and a number at the end. So we're going to use the crossover method to finish this bit off. Okay, so last one, think about two numbers that multiply to give you 6x squared, 2x and 3x. Doesn't matter what number, what order you put these numbers in, as long as you think of two factors. The 10, think of two numbers that multiply to give you 10. The most obvious ones should be ones that are close together. So 2 times 5. Am I going to write the 2 here? Because there's a 2 next to it. So I'm going to guess the 2 there and the 5 there and see what's going to happen there. So that times that gives me 4x. And then cross over that side, cross over that bit times that bit gives me 15. Okay, the 15 is too big, but we're going to be adding them together and we need to make ourselves a negative 11, which actually is perfect. If you want to make minus 7, you can see the difference between them is 11. So we're going to make this negative and make this one positive so it goes down into the negative numbers. So minus 15 plus 4 gives us minus 11. Check that makes sense. Put the minus sign back here, put the plus sign back here and check. Yeah, plus and minus, make a minus. All of that works as well beautifully. And then you put brackets around this. And this is really cool. This is quite a challenging question. So if you can remember the steps I told you, you're done. Write that out, 2x minus 5 in the first bracket. And then your second bracket is a 3x plus 2. And that is it. And it's actually quite a hard question, but you've got the 4 marks from doing that. 1 from doing this, 2 marks for your method here, showing how you're trying to find the factors. And then the final mark for writing the full answer fully factorized. This is fully factorized. It's a 3-way factorization because it's a cubic. Okay? And that, if you can understand that and got across that, you're doing great, because that's probably one of the harder questions that do come up. Okay? I will be sending a link out with a couple of questions for you to have a go at home during the meantime while I don't see you for the next couple of weeks. And the next lesson, we'll try the next 2 topics and see if we can finish off this. All right? I hope that was really useful. And we'll recap this at the next lesson as well. Thank you very much. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect, Ms. Barlow. Thank you very, very much. What does the rest of the day find you doing?
Pardon?
What does the rest of the day find you doing?
I'm teaching, still teaching all day. So there's lots of kids that are wanting lessons online, and hopefully next week I'll be able to meet up with a couple of the kids and see them. I miss their faces. So
one of our tutors actually said yesterday he was actually out in the garden. He sat at one end of the garden, shooting from the other end of the garden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, adventurous. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us again. I look forward to seeing you in a fortnight.
See you then. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. And Nish, that brings us to the end of a very full-on day. I don't know how we survived all those lessons. It is actually crazy when you think we used to do it for actually hours and hours and hours on end.
I know, till like 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. But now we're there. Wow, you've come really close to the camera.
Hi.
Yeah.
Just like move my laptop away.
I can breathe easy now, Nish. That was terrifying. That's terrifying. Brilliant. Well, can you please round us off after our mammoth long day? Yeah, all right, cool. So I will put up the link to the task for the end of that math session. Also, if you didn't have a go at those questions that Miss Bala showed at the end of her session, you can have a go. You can look at the video and have a go at them as well. You can catch up on all of these sessions that we've had on YouTube and on Facebook. All the links to tasks and resources will be in the descriptions. Yeah, that's it for today. That's the end of our week. Oh, what a strange long week it was as well. Is today the only day I joined? I think you did Monday as well. Brilliant. That sounds like a plan. Monday and Friday. See you there. What are you up to this weekend? I don't really follow it. Are people allowed out? Are they not allowed out? Really? Like you shouldn't be out. You shouldn't be out. But no, I'm just going to be at home, basically. Just going to spend some more time at home. So Spain, they can go out in groups of 10 now? Apparently from Monday. Say again? Apparently from Monday. From Monday? Where did you hear such false information? I know. I wonder where. Yeah. I think Ms. Barla's kindly just shared something with us. Has it come to you as well? No, it has not. Okay, I will pass it on to you now. It's just in case. So this is the one to put up for today for maths, I believe. Cool. Great to be a maths teacher. I don't think there's any more resources in the world available than maths. Just everything seems to be maths. You look at anything online, it's maths.
Yep, I used to want to be a maths teacher.
Really?
Hey, yeah.
Ah, they are the tutoring goldmine, the maths tutoring goldmine. Right, and with that wonderful reflection and deep thought, I will head off into the weekend, just as I'm sure you are looking forward to too. Thank you so much as ever, my dear. It's always really great to do this with you. Thank you for holding the fort this week. I told everyone from the beginning you were really in charge, and this week you just showed that it was. That's how it was. It's true. Right, have a great day, yeah?
You too.
Bye.